Hello and welcome to the All Saint Francis Friends channel. Today's story is about a Great Dane named Bruce and his hour-long fight with boar. For his bravery, Bruce was awarded the VC collar with a silver badge that read, "For bravery," like all dogs who risk their lives for human beings. The story of how the Great Dane named Bruce belonging to Mr. Davis of Bradfield Farm won his VC collar will be told and retold for many years to come by the inhabitants of the little Essex village of Doddinghurst. His hour-long battle with the boar is an epic which will not easily be forgotten by those who witnessed it. Any reader who cares to visit either of the village's two little inns of an evening when the farm hands are forgathered, well, it happened one afternoon in June 1934. The village lay wrapped in silence. The menfolk were away in the fields at their work, their women were taking a well-earned siesta. A sense of serene peace and quietness enveloped the entire countryside. The only travelers along the dusty white road that curled through the village were white and brown butterflies fluttering idly with the light breeze. It was a warm breeze, laden with the scents of summer, and carried with it the sounds of the fields and meadows, the call of a thrush or greenfinch, the chirp of grasshoppers. These and a dozen other sounds blended into one throb, the throb of life itself, steady, measured, and never ceasing. The only sound that gave evidence of human activity was a distant drone and clatter, telling of a meadow, hidden from sight by a fold in the land, being mowed. At Bradfield Farm all was still and silent. In the shadow of the long cowshed lay Bruce, the Great Dane, hero of this story. His massive head rested on his forepaws, and his ears twitched occasionally to drive away the flies that settled there. A heavy chain was fastened to his collar, and to a staple in the wall. As he lay resting, a shrill scream shattered the quiet and peace of the summer's afternoon, sending the great dog in one bound to his feet, ears and tail erect, nostrils quivering. A terrified scream of a woman in distress. The Great Dane stretched at the length of his chain, straining in the direction whence the sound came. A moment later a woman, her hair streaming, her face flushed and anxious, ran at full tilt round the corner of the line of cowsheds. Close at her heels followed a large white boar, his small feet covering the ground at an amazing rate. The woman's foot caught in a cobble, she stumbled, grasped for support at a door of the cowshed which stood open, and managed to save herself from falling. But the delay had brought the boar up to her heels. She stumbled forward again, gasping painfully for breath and exerting all that remained of her spent energy to reach the house and escape the tusks of the half-mad creature at her heels. Meanwhile, Bruce had added his voice to the hubbub. Recognizing the woman instantly as his mistress, he appreciated the danger that threatened her. But the heavy chain held him back from rendering the assistance he could otherwise have given. Again and again he hurled his great body forward, only to have it jerked back when the chain ran taut. His neck hurt where the collar tugged at it, and the sudden jerks jolted the breath out of his body, but he took no heed and hurled himself forward again. The chain was still attached to his collar. Scrambling to his feet, he bounded across the yard, the chain dragging over the stones behind him. Then commenced a battle that was to last for over an hour. The dog had the advantage of height and agility, but the boar had greater weight, and its tough hide left few vulnerable spots. The dog was hampered by the chain dangling from his collar. The first rush the dog made took the boar by surprise. He was too intent on his quarry to notice the dog. Bruce rushed at him, and sought to grip him at the back of the neck. His teeth found their hold in the folds of thick skin, and closing his jaws he tugged with all his strength. With a snort in which astonishment mingled with rage, the boar swung its body round to meet this unexpected attack. The dog swung with him, and thrice they circled completely round, either quite determined what to do next. Then the dog, realizing that to retain his hold would only sap his strength whilst not seriously affecting that of his opponent, released his grip and leapt back. In a flash he was forward again, reaching out to seize the boar's huge snout. But he was not quite quick enough. The boar threw its head up, and one of its long tusks struck the dog on the side of the jaw, sending him reeling sideways. Bruce drew back. He was not afraid, there was no place for fear in his heart, but he recognized in his adversary a skilled fighter, one whose abilities must be respected. he decided to adopt other tactics. Darting from side to side, he barked furiously at the boar, confusing it by the noise he made, fuddling its mind by his rapid movements. Then, seizing his opportunity, he grabbed at one of his enemy's long ears. The boar screeched with pain and impotent rage, and whirled around in a vain effort to shake itself free. And still the fight continued. Once, the dog missed his footing, and was crushed against the wall. And then one of the tusks sank deep into the flesh of his neck. Somehow he managed to break free, and scrambled to his feet again. For over an hour the battle raged with unabated fury. Farm hands from the fields arrived on the scene, for the uproar of the conflict could be heard nearly a mile away. They tried to separate the pair, but in vain. Neither animal took any heed. Each had its eyes fixed relentlessly on the others, each was fired with but one desire, the desire to kill. Bruce, strong though he was, felt his strength beginning to ebb, his sight became blurred. Then he saw the opportunity for which he had been waiting for nearly an hour. The boar lunged at him, its snout passed within a few inches of his mouth. He seized it in his jaws as it swung past, and held it fast. The boar swung this way and that, banging the dog's head down on the ground again and again, half stunning him. The dog held on. Through his confused brain there ran one clear thought: never, never, happen what may, must he let go that snout. The end came at last. The boar, overwhelmed by pain and exhaustion, rolled over on its flank, and lay quivering. Several of the men who had hurried to the scene rushed forward to seize Bruce. Dimly aware that victory was his, he released his hold, and allowed them to carry his battered body away. The trouble had all started when Mrs. Davis went into the meadow to feed a sow and her litter of young porkers. The boar was kept shut up in the barn because it was so vicious, but had somehow managed to work its way out, and as soon as it saw her approach the sow, rushed at her furiously, chasing her right across the meadow and into the yard. Bruce, who usually has the free run of the farm, was kept chained up at that time because he was inclined to worry the young pigs. The dog is a fine specimen of his breed. He has a quiet dignity and an air of self-reliance which is very pleasing to observe. Every summer a number of children from the slums of the East End of London come to spend their holidays at a free camp established by Mr. Davis on the farm. Bruce enjoys their company. He lets the youngsters take any number of liberties with him. During the winter months, he often goes round collecting money to help pay for the children's holiday.